What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Fish the Moment. Today I'm on Lake Tenkiller in eastern Oklahoma. I'm starting a brand new video series which will hopefully help me catch a lot bigger fish more consistently throughout 2020. So let's get into it. Okay guys, so in my last video I talked about my plan for finding bigger bass in 2020. And if you haven't seen that video, check it out using the link in the description below. And I'm going to be starting a brand new series where I fish 2 days in a row. And one day will be a practice day where I try to find areas with 3 to 5 pound bass. And then I'm going to do a quote-unquote tournament day where I try to catch my 5 biggest bass. And I'm going to do this over and over again until I improve my ability to find those 3 to 5 pounders. And this is the first video in that series. And so today I'm going to be practicing on Lake Tenkiller, trying to find productive areas. And I really want to make sure that I use a structured approach in my practice days so I can learn how to practice more efficiently and also teach that to you guys. And one thing I found that was helpful when I used to fish a lot of tournaments was to spend a lot of time driving my boat during practice days, both to graph offshore structure as well as just look for shoreline cover, transitions on the bank, things like that. And so one thing I want to figure out in these practice videos is the correct proportion of fishing to driving the boat. And so I want to see if maybe I need to split my practice days into 50% fishing, 50% driving and graphing, maybe 75% driving and graphing, only 25% fishing, maybe only driving the boat around, no fishing. And so I am going to mess around with the different proportions of graphing and fishing to see which one is most effective. And so today I'm going to start with a 50-50 approach, and I'll tell you more about that back on the lake. Okay guys, so today I got a little bit of a late start. It's actually already noon, and so I'm only gonna have about 4.5 hours of practice today. And my plan is to break up my practice day into half graphing, half fishing. So I get about 2 hours, maybe 2 hours and 15 minutes of graphing and 2 hours and 15 minutes of fishing. And what I wanna try to do is basically just figure out which section of the lake sets up the best for my eye, what I like to do, how I like to fish this time of year. And I'm just gonna run around the lake here for about an hour, check some stuff, graph a few areas, maybe throw a bait in the water a little bit, but I really want to make sure I stick to that 2 hours of graphing, 2 hours of fishing, and see how that works out for my day tomorrow. So I decided to start by graphing some offshore structure, and actually found some fish in anywhere from 30 to 40 feet of water schooled up on big balls of bait fish. And I didn't think that this would be the pattern I would go with during my tournament day, but I wanted to keep the fish honest and keep all possibilities open because who knows, I might have found the mother load of fish offshore. So I decided to pick up a blade bait and at least make a few casts down there to see what those fish were. Okay, so I just made 4 or 5 casts on these offshore fish with this blade bait, and I didn't get any bites, and I'm not going to spend more than maybe 4 or 5 minutes fishing the spot because my goal today isn't to catch fish really. The big thing I'm focusing on is just trying to eliminate patterns that aren't working and try to get a clue on a couple patterns that are. And so if I only get maybe 2 bites today, that's perfectly fine with me. And a lot of times when I'm practicing as well, I like to eliminate the crazy patterns, like for example fishing a blade bait in 40 foot of water. And a lot of times when I'm fishing down, let's say, these steep rocky walls where I'm pretty confident I'm going to catch them, I will be second guessing myself all day thinking, man, what if those blade bait fish are biting? Or what if I go do this or that to get some bites? And so a lot of times I like to eliminate stuff that I am not sure will work, but is kind of somewhat intriguing to me in my practice days. So that way I can focus on the key patterns that I know should be working in general. And so I'm about to reel up here and keep graphing. I've only burned about 7-8 minutes of my fishing time today, and I'm going to save a lot of that fishing time for cranking down bluff walls, cranking down the bank, because I can't really use my electronics for that. But it's just kind of a good idea to eliminate some stuff like this, like I'm talking about. And who knows, we might find some fish offshore still, and this blade bait might catch him, so we'll see. So I didn't get any of the fish I saw in my graph to commit to the blade bait, and I wasn't all that surprised because I saw a lot of bait fish down there and very few bass. And if you've seen my video about how to find active bass offshore, you know that when you see a lot of bait fish and very few bass, those bass aren't going to be very active. And I kept graphing around some offshore structure and noticed that a lot of the spots had a lot of bait but very few fish. So I quickly made the adjustment and started fishing down a 45-degree channel swing bank to see if I could find some fish up shallow because the offshore fish just weren't looking that cooperative. Got him. Good one. Oh my gosh, that's a good start to the day right there, guys. Oh my goodness. Get up here, fish. He choked that thing. Oh, look at that smallie right there, guys. I think I found some bigger fish. Oh man, that RkCrawler right there, he choked it. It's a 4-pound smallie right there. Oh, let me get this guy on hook real quick. I'll talk to you about what I'm doing. That is a tank. Oh, there we go, guys. Let me get this guy on the scale, see what this guy weighs. That is a tank for my first fish of the day. Tenkiller has some toads in it. And I know there's more like this all around. That is a 476, 4 3/4 pound smallmouth, almost a 5-pounder right there. That's a tank. That's what I'm talking about. Let's just get back in the water. I'll talk to you what I was doing. And I think we might be on to something, guys. That's what I'm talking about. Beautiful fish right there, guys. Let's let him go. He's back in the lake. That's what I'm talking about. Got that fish, guys, on a Spro RkCrawler 55. This is the red craw color. And I'm just cranking some channel swing banks, just like I talked about earlier. I know this is a way I can catch some good ones right now. Water temperatures are 55 degrees, or 51 degrees, sorry. Water temps are 51 degrees. We kind of have some sun, a little bit of wind, which is perfect for this crankbait bite. Will that hold up tomorrow? I'm not sure. We have to kind of take a look at the conditions, but right now that's a really good sign. And I'm seeing a ton of bait fish in this area, and pull up to my first bang, caught almost a 5-pounder. So that is perfect for what they need to be doing tomorrow. One thing though is, you guys know, you can be a practice hero and catch 4 or 5 pound smallmouth all day, go out the next day and not catch anything. And so we're gonna talk about how I'm gonna avoid doing that. But for now, I'm gonna crank down this bank, see if that wasn't just like a fluke, and if we can get one more in the boat. But I am jacked up. Okay guys, so all I'm doing is just throwing this RkCrawler down these 45-degree channel swing banks, and this RkCrawler goes anywhere from 9 to 10 foot deep, and so just trying to dig it down there in the rocks. And this is a great pattern, guys, in the wintertime when the water temps are between 48 and kind of 55 degrees, and it works really well as you're going into the winter, let's say November, December, and when you're coming out of the winter in February and March. And basically what I'm looking for are just chunk rock banks where these fish can kind of relate to. They have deep water access close by, rocks up shallow, and usually this pattern is the best when you have some sort of wind or you have a little bit of stain to the water. And so today we don't have a lot of wind, it's pretty calm, but we do have a nice 2 to 2.5 foot of visibility where we're fishing, a little bit of stain in the water, which is perfect. And down by the dam you might have 10 foot of visibility, but that's really tough to fish when there's no wind. And so it seems like today I picked the right area of the lake, but tomorrow if we get a bunch of wind, cloud cover, maybe this section of the lake might turn off and the lower end of the lake down by the dam might be better. And so I'm gonna check several sections of this lake and kind of try to keep this pattern honest around the lake. And you know, it might not work tomorrow, the conditions could be awful for it, but right now that's a really good sign when the first bite of the day is almost a 5-pound smallmouth. So after catching that good fish, I wanted to try to see if I could replicate this pattern and find more fish on 45-degree chunk rock banks with a channel swing. And usually for me, if I just catch one fish, that doesn't mean I've developed a pattern or even know what I'm doing. That could just been a complete fluke. And so I ran to another channel swing bank at the mouth of a pocket that looked very similar, and actually didn't get any bites here. And so I decided to move a little bit further into the pocket and found another 45-degree chunk rock bank, but it didn't have a channel swing by it, but it did have some wind blowing into it. Got him. Good one. Another good one. Wow. Okay, rocky wind-blown point. This is a little bit flatter bank this time. That fish was up there pretty shallow, but this is another big smallie right here, guys. See how the trolling motor fish? Oh, there we go. Nice smallmouth right there. Probably a 2 3/4 pounder. Perfect size for what we're looking for. Got it hooked real quick. Same bait right there. RkCrawler 55. Just cranking down these banks, wind-blown banks. 45-degree angle. That's a 3-pounder probably. I'll weigh that guy real quick just to make sure. Let me get the scales out. Yep, he is like 3 pounds on the nose. So like 299 or 305, somewhere in there. So right at a 3-pounder. So 2 fish for 8 pounds almost right off the bat. Beautiful bass, nice fish right there. Put this guy back in the lake. Oh, beautiful fish right there. Let's let this guy go. There we go. That is 2 fish now, guys, in about 35 minutes on that RkCrawler. And so I feel pretty confident that I can pretty much run around this top end of the lake where I launched, throwing that RkCrawler down the 45-degree banks with some wind blowing on them and catch some fish. And so now what I want to do is actually start running around this part of the lake and just visually identifying these nice 45-degree looking banks. I'm not actually going to do any fishing. I'm going to put the rods away, and really it's not going to help me at all to catch 2 or 3 or 4 more fish. I already have established a pattern. I know the bait I want to be throwing, and so all I have to do now is just kind of find some more areas. And at the same time, if the conditions change tomorrow, this bite might completely dry up. And so I also want to spend some time graphing around offshore and also off some deeper points to see if I can find some fish maybe that are a little bit deeper that might be less affected if the conditions change. Maybe where I could throw some finesse baits or something and maybe still pick up some 2.5, 3 pounders. And so that's how I'm gonna spend the rest of my day. And I think one of the big things that guys mess up on in practice is they get so excited about trying to go catch a bunch of fish, they start burning up all their fish and fishing all these banks, and they really screw themselves over for the tournament because they don't have any more fish to catch. And so again, I'm gonna go mark a lot of these similar looking banks around this area, and then once I have all those marked, I'm gonna go start graphing around offshore and maybe find some more fish. So after catching 2 quality fish on 45-degree chunk rock banks with a crankbait, I felt pretty confident that I'd established at least the start of a pattern. And instead of trying to go fish down a bunch of 45-degree chunk rock banks and burn up a bunch of fish, all I did was actually run around the lake on pad and mark every single 45-degree bank I could find that was on the main lake, in the first third of a pocket, or in the back of a pocket. And what I was going to do is just come back on my tournament day and fish those banks rather than fish them during my practice day, again, because I don't want to burn up the fish, and I can really figure out which banks are good during the tournament day by just covering water and fishing them day of. And so after marking a bunch of these 45-degree banks, I wanted to try to establish another pattern that might work in case that chunk rock bank pattern was not effective during my tournament day. And so I ran back into a creek where I saw a bunch of nice boat docks and started graphing down some boat docks, seeing if I could see some brush piles underneath the boat docks, maybe some bait fish around them. And as I was doing that, I noticed that there were a bunch of birds diving in the very back of this creek. And I had a thought there might be some bait fish back in the pocket because of all the birds. And so I rolled over there, saw a nice calm chunk rock bank, and decided to pick up a finesse jig and see if I could maybe entice some fish on these chunk rock banks with no wind using the jig. That'd be a great backup pattern if the conditions were a little bit tough. Go. It's a good one. There we go. Nice largemouth right there. Wow, there we go. Another spot right here, guys. That's what I'm talking about. Changed up, came back in the back of a creek and tried to find a little bit more protected area with some chunk rock to see if I could catch some fish on a jig. And my thought process is if the conditions kind of get a little more slick and calm, I might be able to catch some better largemouth, or maybe some smallmouth a little bit further back in the creeks and salvage my day if that wind isn't blowing. But that is a nice fish. That's another 3-pounder right there. That's what I'm talking about, guys. Put this guy back down there. Fish just came off this little rocky area here, and I'm just throwing a little Jewel Pee-wee football jig. It's a 5/16-ounce jig with a Zoom Junior chunk trailer, and I'm actually throwing this on a $49 Abu Garcia Vengeance rod, and I can barely feel a strike from that fish. I'm testing out some of these less expensive rods. I kind of want to give a review to you guys of rods from $50 all the way to $200, and I did not really like the feel of this rod on that fish catch, so I'm probably going to keep fishing with it for a little bit. It casts okay, seems to get the bait out there. I couldn't tell that fish had the bait in his mouth at all. So for tomorrow, I'm definitely going to go back to my Quantum smoke rods before I get fishing. But for now, this will do. And man, that was a good fish. That was a really good fish, actually. So kind kind of a good sign that maybe I can catch some fish further back in these pockets too, without the sun or without the wind. Got him. Wow, there we go. That's my second fish down this bank, guys. I need to get out of here. This bank's got him. Mark this. Wow. So I'm talking about this. Another nice largemouth right there. This is happening today, guys. Again, this could all go away by tomorrow. That's the thing that's so unfortunate. That's another 2 3/4 pounder right there. Same exact bait, just 5 feet down the bank on that jewel peewee football jig. Nice fish right there. Okay, well, we're getting it figured out. It's only 4 hours of practice. Seems to be going pretty well today. And maybe just trying to change up my approach to try to fish the obvious stuff, fish the baits I'm confident in, stuff like that, is the change I needed to start catching these bigger fish and maybe getting onto some lakes that maybe fit my style a little bit better. Who knows? But that is a nice fish. That is number 4 on the day. I'm gonna put the jig up and I'm actually gonna go try to find more banks that set up like this and not mess with any more of these fish here. There we go, nice fish. Okay, time to put the rods away. Right now my boat's sitting in 17 feet of water. We're pretty close to the bank here, so I just want to make sure that I'm fishing in an area that is kind of setting up the same as this. So I need my boat maybe about 17 to 20 foot of water, half a cast to a cast off the bank with some chunk rock, and it doesn't seem to matter if the wind's blowing. There's really no wind blowing on this stretch. And I have a whole other stretch right here that has probably some more fish on it, so that is pretty exciting, guys. So really quick, guys, as I was ending this video, I noticed that there is a 25 days of savings sale on Tackle Warehouse, and I actually didn't know that this was happening somehow, but I actually do have a Tackle Warehouse affiliate link where if you use the link on Tackle Warehouse, I get a small percentage of the profits. And so if you go on Tackle Warehouse, you can get some great deals right now through this 25 days of savings, and actually just placed a big order on Gamakatsu hooks that I'll be using for the rest of 2020. And so definitely go check out these 25 days of savings. There's some great deals. If you use that link, I get a small cut of the profits. So I really appreciate that. But I mean, deals are so good, you gotta take advantage of them if you can. So definitely check that out. Now let's get back to the fishing. Okay, so now I'm feeling pretty good because I just caught 2 more good fish in the back of a creek on a chunk rock bank with a jig where there's no wind. And I feel like this is going to be a really good backup area if we get those high pressure, bright blue skies, no wind kind of day. And it's always good to have a pattern that you can fall back on when you face those worst case scenario conditions. But I didn't want to get too excited because this may have just been a fluke, one good bank. And so I wanted to try to duplicate this pattern on another bank in the back of the same creek. So I rolled over to another similar looking bank and started fishing a jig. Got him. Another good one. Okay. This is definitely came off. It's fine. It's definitely a pattern, guys. I'm actually going to stop right here. I'm not even going to make another cast down this bank. That is another fish right here. Same exact situation. Front of the boat's in 16 foot of water. Have a steep rocky bank on the jig. That was a 2.5 pounder. That little jewel finesse jig. That's what I'm talking about. So definitely another pattern I can definitely run. It seems like if I can maybe find a couple more banks like this in the back of a creek, if we have this similar conditions with no wind and bright sun, I should be able to get them on this peewee football jig and hopefully put a good limit in the boat that way as well. And so I'm gonna spend, let's see how much time I have left. Looks like I only have about an hour left. And so I'm gonna spend my last hour basically just driving through the back of some of these pockets on this part of the lake and seeing if I can find some of these steep banks in the back of the pockets with some chunk rock, and hopefully if I find a few more of those, I should be all set for tomorrow and we should be able to put some good fish in the boat. Okay, so now I'm feeling pretty confident that I've established a second pattern because I've duplicated the jig bite on 2 separate banks. And what I wanted to do now is do exactly what I did after finding the crankbait pattern, and that's run around the lake and find more chunk rock banks with a little bit deeper water in the backs of pockets. And I ran around in the back of several pockets, marked a couple good areas, and actually stopped on one area just to make sure that maybe that one creek wasn't just really good, and see if I could duplicate this pattern on another creek in a different part of the lake. Oh, there's one right there. I'm gonna shake him off, guys, because I don't want to
I don't want him to, come on fish, come off. I don't want to set look on this fish because I already have caught so many today. I know I've been shaking off a lot of fish today. You see my rod? He's like all the way out here. Come on fish, spit it out. Oh my gosh, I've already hooked so many today. I don't want to mess with them. I might have to. This fish is literally at the boat. Like, oh, he came off. Oh man, that's crazy. Well, you know, a lot of times when I'm practicing for tournaments, guys, I will shake off fish like that. I won't mess with them and set the hook, just because a lot of times you can come back and catch fish off these banks. And I basically just rolled over to another rocky bank in the back of a pocket. 4th cast, that was a good one. That was another probably 3.5 pounder, I would guess. And so I got another little stretch right here. I'm just gonna drop a waypoint. And I mean, there's no real point in trying this pattern anymore, because now that's 3 banks in a row and we know this is working. We also know that the main lake RkCrawler bite is working, and so I don't know, I feel like that's 2 pretty good patterns. I mean, my 2 favorite ways of catching them are on a jig and on a crankbait. The only other thing I could think about is maybe trying to find some fish on like a Ned rig or something like that, just in case it gets really tough. But honestly, if it comes to that, then I'll just have to probably adapt to day of. But for now, I'm getting so many bites on this jig and that crankbait. I kind of want to have some optimism that the fish will be staying on this pattern at least for one more day. The weather conditions are going to be very consistent the next couple days, and so it shouldn't change too much. And so who knows, it might completely blow up in my face if I don't go try to find some fish on like a Ned rig or something, but I might not be able to even get some finesse fish going just because of the wind we have. But either way, hope you guys have enjoyed my practice day so far. I think I'm just going to kind of call it a day just because I don't really know what else to do. It's been a really great day. This has also bit me in the butt before too. Sometimes I stop too soon, but I think today I'm going to do that just because I had a long morning getting over here. So anyways, again, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully you're going to enjoy this series of videos where I do my practice day and then go and try to crush them. And I'll be out here tomorrow, hopefully putting a 20 to 25 pound bag of smallmouth in the boat, and hopefully put some really good footage out for you guys as well. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully you learned something, and other than that, I'll see y'all in the next video.